Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang, and we're going to talk about why the February 7th New Hampshire ABC Apple debate number 8 is going to be more important for Andrew Yang and every other candidate than the February 3rd Iowa caucus. This is a J. Scott Garibay exclusive. I don't think any other political pundit is saying this right now. But I think this is what I would call an emergent understanding, right? There are a lot of new facts on the ground. There are a lot of changes in 2020. I think there are a lot of elements that we're seeing in 2020 that have never existed for any other election. And right now, I think it's incredibly clear that debates matter a lot more than the primary and the caucuses. And even though Iowa, the February 3rd Iowa caucus is the first, and it used to be real important, I'm not so sure it's that important anymore. And I'm going to explain why. Let's get into it. All right, let's talk about Andrew Yang and the huge opportunity that debate number 8 is for him specifically. Now, the other thing is, I said, the reality is debate number 8 is more important than the Iowa caucus, right? Now, this is the same for every candidate, but it's most important for Yang because Yang has the most ability to get the most margin out of the difference, right? And the reason one of the reasons why is I think that Andrew Yang is particularly good at the debates for each one because he improves in each one, right? For a few reasons. One, Andrew Yang far more than any other candidate has improved in every debate, of course, except for number 7, which was a miss, right? But I think he's going to come out really strong in debate number 8. I think he'll definitely have improvement over debate number 6, and so he has consistent improvement through each debate. And then here's the other one. I think this is a good thing for him. I think he is very underrated. He is underestimated by both by the few things, by the DNC, by the Democrat voter base, and by the traditional media, right? Now, none of us like to dwell on this, but we need to politics is looking at some harsh realities, right? When you are underestimated, you can use that to incredible advantage. And boy, has Donald Trump taught everyone that lesson, right? When you are underestimated, you can turn that estimation into you can mint that into absolute pure bars of gold pressed latinum, right? It's just it's Beskar valuable. It's so valuable, right? And I think Andrew Yang is smart enough to really drive this home, right? Okay, so why is debate 8 more valuable? Why is debate 8 more important than the Iowa caucus? All right, let's get into this, okay? All right, so here we are, right? So we're going into the Iowa caucus, right? So February 3rd Iowa caucus. So I was very excited about this, and so I said, hey, Scott, work a little extra hard on your channel and go do your homework, and let's simplify this whole complex, gumbo of politics for the peoples, right? For your channel, and give a nice summary, get everybody prepared for what's coming with these primaries and these caucuses, right? So I did. Because one of the things, I don't know if you know this, but summary is incredibly difficult, right? And I know this because I'm a writer. I know this because I'm a game master. I know this because I read a lot, right? And I know that doing a summary is incredibly difficult, right? I also know this because I'm in technology, and I've been watching very carefully how artificial intelligence is built, and summary is one of the things that is absolutely most difficult for the coders to get AIs to do. It's almost impossible, actually, because in order to do summary, you have to understand priority, you have to understand sequencing, you have to understand relevance, you have to understand importance, and every single one of those words is so freighted, it's amazing, right? So, the reality is summary is incredibly difficult, right? So I went to this, and I was going to summarize for you what I knew to be a complex gumbo of elements, the 2020 primary election process, right? Really, the primary election process and what we're seeing right now for 2020, right? And what I found is that it is far more complex than I had even remembered, right? I have a degree in political science, right? Like I earned it at Millersville University, fantastic university. I would suggest it to anybody out there who has, kids who are looking for a good school. It's a fantastic school. And so, yeah, I earned my first degree, my bachelor's degree in political science at Millersville University. And of course I've been following politics ever since then. But let me explain. So in order to win the primary election, you have to get the votes, right? Well, the votes have 4 parameters of complexity. I'll bang them out for you, okay? The first layer of complexity is who, right? Who can vote in these primaries and these caucuses, right? Well, first, are you a party member? Do you belong to the Republicans or the Democrats, or are you an independent, right? Well, there's complexity around each and every single one of those, right? Are you domestic or are you international, right? Do you live in some other country, but you're an American with the right to vote? There's complexity around that. And none of that is simple, right? And there's a lot of complexity around that, right? All right, and again, all that complexity is a parameter on the vote to win the primary election, okay? To go into the general, right? This is what Andrew Yang needs to do, right? And every candidate needs to do. Most importantly, Andrew Yang, of course, right? When the voting happens, right? Well, there are many shifting dates for all the states, right? There are many shifting dates between the different states. And there is recursion, right? So New Hampshire has a law that their primary goes 2 weeks before anybody else, right? And people try to jump in front of them, and then New Hampshire will push theirs back, right? The only reason Iowa goes before New Hampshire is because they have a caucus, right? It's incredible, right? Now, by the way, a good bit of this I looked up in different sources, but there's an absolutely fantastic video done by CGP. I'll put the link below. Does a fantastic job of showing this in a visual way. A lot of the elements I'll talk about are in that video. These parameters of complexity, these are mine, right? With some spice from him, from CGP's video as well, right? So, but definitely check out that video as well. Does a really good job of kind of breaking this in. It's still a hot mess even after you've watched that. It's incredibly complex, right? All right, so the dates are incredibly confusing, right? Next is the visibility of the vote, right? What is the visibility of the vote? Well, if you are running a caucus, all the votes are public. Anybody can see how you voted, right? If you are running a primary, those votes are private, right? But there's a layer of complexity there, right? Last, what is the mass of your vote, right? If you are voting in a primary or caucus, you have incredibly low mass to your vote, right? When you hit the national convention, there are delegates, and their votes have mass, right? And then you have super delegates, which are high mass votes, right? That is the 4th parameter of complexity around the voting for the primary elections, right? And then all those things, who, when, visibility, mass for votes, they all interact in different ways for different states in different configurations. The complexity is so high that guess what? The primary election process is completely opaque, right? And I am convinced that this is a situation that we see in technology all the time. The complexity of the American primary election process is not understood by a single American, not one. It is not fully understood by anyone living on this planet. No one, right? That is very, very much the case. This happens all the time in technology. Silos of knowledge go so deep that it can no longer be held within a single human brain. And that's exactly where we've arrived with the primary election process, right? And so what that means is that we go forward, right? And then we get these political wonks who dive into the rules, right? And find all these weird things, right? And that's how you end up with situations like hanging chads. And that's why we've had all this kind of complexity that we've seen with different problems with different elections coming, in the past. And the primary election process for America is incredibly opaque with complexity, right? So guess what people do when things are complex? They check out. They don't pay attention, right? And that's exactly what's happening, right? Americans they're not going to care one way or another about these primaries and these caucuses, right? Right now, Bernie Sanders is crushing it in New Hampshire, right? He's got these huge numbers in New Hampshire. Oh, big deal. Super liberal state, like super liberal candidate. Woo! Like, come on, like who's surprised, right? But even polls, right? Polls used to be respected. Nobody gives two rats about polls now. And the reason why was 2016 was like, hey, everybody, polls don't mean a thing. They do not mean a thing. People had questioned their value before 2016. We all know they're ridiculous now, right? And in 2020, polls are an oddity we can all look at, and maybe they mean something, maybe they don't. We'll see, right? And the reality is maybe polls will return to relevance in 2024, 2028, right? But right now they're completely unproven. 2016 has sent everybody spinning on polls. Nobody cares, right? Because we don't know if we can trust them, right? And 2016 has absolutely shattered trust in polls for presidential elections. Anybody who's trusting polls for 2020 is not paying attention, right? It'd be ridiculous, right? All right, so the complexity of the primary election process makes it so that most voters and most Americans are just going to check them out. And they're going to check out, and they're not going to pay attention, and they're not going to care. And frankly, I'm not sure they really should, right? Because the reality is, we're not going to know what the result is until we're at the end, until we're like 2/3 through the national convention, right? And a lot of this is going to be quite academic, right? The reality of it. And everybody's going to scramble and do the best job they can. But the reality is nobody on this planet understands the full process. And there are going to be political wonks who are going to try to find tricks and, little ways to massage gains out of this whole process. And we're going to see who's going to do the best job, right? And we're hoping that some of those geniuses are going to be working for Andrew Yang and that he's going to find a few tricks to gain a few points himself, right? Nothing that, would be on the wrong side of the law. We're just talking, intelligent maneuvers. That's all I'm talking about here, right? Not even shenanigans, just intelligent maneuvers. There's a difference. There's a difference between tactics and strategy and outright law breaking, right? So that's what we're talking about here, right? So now let's talk about the debates. They are simple. You turn on your TV, 7 people talk to each other, right? And they have a chance to have a political discourse. And they have a chance to have political battle, right? And then the media comes along and they take that very simple 2 hours, right? And they cut it up into sound bites and they make it even more simple. And you know what? The people, they don't ignore that. They pay very, very close attention to those, right? And even if they ignore it on the night when it runs, they don't ignore it the next day. They check in and watch the summaries, and you can darn well bet they pay attention to the sound bites, right? Americans love sound bites. They'll give you 7 seconds of their life. They'll pay attention. If you delivered a stunning political blow, right, with a one-liner, you're definitely gonna catch their attention, right? Whereas if you gained 3 points in the Iowa caucus, which half America doesn't even know what a caucus is, or why it's happening, or when it's happening, or what it means, or how many votes it's going to deliver. And frankly, some of the smartest political wonks in the country don't know that either because the process is so completely opaque, right? That's why the debates matter. They're far simpler. And there is a mechanism for delivery, right, that will make them even more simple and even more impactful. Debates matter because of the ubiquitous camera and these primary and these caucuses, because of the outrageous complexity that we've allowed to grow, and because of the incredible lack of, in my opinion, hard work, dedication, and commitment of the traditional media to actually deliver a sound, useful simplification of this process and teach this to Americans. That means that the debates are far more important than the primaries and the caucuses, right? So I really think, now the reality is, even as I do want to take just 1 minute and say this real quick. Even as complex as this process has become, I still love our primary election process in that it is strong. It is a strong and enduring process, right? And I will hold it up against any nation's process in the world, bar none. America still wins, right? Like nobody's beaten us in virtually anything, right? Like, South Korea is beating us in dance choreography. They got that, and I think almost nobody else is beating America in virtually anything else in the world. If you think I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments below. And here's the thing. The thing that I love about all of this is, here's another thing that's absolutely fantastic about this complexity is make sure, as we go forward, with this incredible opaqueness of the primary election process, right? Do not let any fool pundit walk forward and tell you that they know what's going to happen in this election. Nobody knows what's going to happen in this election until November 2nd. And as long as Andrew Yang, stays in this election and does not quit, like Kamala Harris, like Cory Booker, like Beto O'Rourke, like Kristen Gillibrand, like a whole slew of other lesser politicians that Yang has already put behind him, right? As long as he persists, as long as he endures until November 2nd, he can win, right? And there is not a single political commentator out there, there's not a statistician or anybody out there that can see through the opaqueness to the real numbers. There's going to be a lot of people that pretend they can, right? I think Lichtman's got a clue. He knows, he has a good idea of what's going to happen, right? But the reality is nobody knows for sure what's going to happen until November 2nd. And Andrew Yang, as long as he persists, he has got a absolute fantastic chance at being the champion of this political process and this political contest. And that's what makes me incredibly excited today. All that is my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.